The Vikings, they hold on against the Falcons in an absolutely bizarre slugfest. We're breaking it all down. It's coming up next on the Locked On Vikings postcast.
You are Locked On Vikings postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Vikings rise up against Atlanta 31-28. They moved to 5-4 on the season, and we get a peek at life without Kirk Cousins today. What's happening, everyone? Thanks for joining. We got the full four-man crew here today. Myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's Ron Johnson. He's on X, at 3Ron Johnson, host of the Ron Johnson Show right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Luke Braun, host of Locked On Vikings each and every day. He's on X, at Luke Braun NFL. Last but not least, the maestro, Sam Ekstrom, host of the Minnesota Football Party every Monday, Thursday. He's on X, at Sam Ekstrom. Before we jump into it, fellas, quick reminder, this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, boys. Vikes moved to 5-4 today in Atlanta. Fans get their first taste at Josh Dobbs at quarterback. It wasn't exactly how they drew it up and planned it, but a lot to dissect here and hit on, both from like the micro in-game stuff and then the macro big picture stuff pertaining to this quarterback position. Sam, let's start with you because this was a totally bizarre football game we just watched, and I think we knew things were going to look awfully different going from one of the hottest quarterbacks in the league to a fifth-round pick making his first start. But Jaren Hall, I mean, he only lasts about 10 snaps or so. He was ruled out with that concussion. KJ Osborne, prayers up to him. He was ruled out as well. Super scary collision earlier in that game. But Dobbs comes into the game. He just got in Minnesota, He landed, 4 days ago? 4.5 days to get settled in. He takes the safety, loses a fumble, and then throws a touchdown pass. Oh, that was all in the first half. So let's just start with your knee-jerk reaction. I guess your biggest takeaways or two from what just took place here in Week 9.
Just mind blown. That was jarring to see stylistically that type of quarterback in Minnesota.
Yeah.
There's some hazards that come along with it. Couldn't hang on to the ball a few times. But the ability to move and to throw on the run, too, was really fun to watch. 7 rushes, 66 yards, and a game-saving fourth down that just defied description. His touchdown run was unbelievable. He's got wheels, man, like really, really impressive mobility. But beyond that, like I would say even more impressive, with the exception of a couple bad balls, who doesn't have a couple clunkers during the game, his delivery was very precise. He made some throws like over the top of a defender that were right on the money. I thought his arm talent for having very little chemistry with this receiving core was really good today. So there's actually reason to get excited about next week and going forward with Josh Dobbs. Hold on to the ball, Josh. 2 hands if you're going to run with it, please. But other than that, you kind of had a little confidence going into that final drive that, hey, he might be able to improvise enough if plays break down to make something happen. And he did. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, well said. Ron, same question just to start before we get into all the details. I just want your biggest observations or kind of knee-jerk reaction to how this team played with the backup to the backup and still found a way to come out with a win on the road against a physical, tough Atlanta football team.
Well, in Atlanta, I know a lot of people probably never heard this line in a song, but there's a song with Big Boy, and he says, I got the backup plan to my backup plan, the backup to my backup plan. Like, that's what Kevin O'Connell had to do when he was in the A. He had to get his backup to the backup plan, and then his other additional backup plan, Cam Akers, if Josh Dobbs went out, got hurt as well. So this was at one point felt like a fire drill. You had KJ Osborne with a big injury. You had Jaren Hall go out. Then you had Cam Akers lipping off. And then you had TJ Hawkinson in the tent. This was a car crash, and it was super ridiculous with the amount of that. And then also the punch that was not called when Jordan Addison got punched in the face by number 3.
There were a lot of those.
the hold on TJ Hockenson on 3rd and 5 that wasn't caught. It felt extremely chaotic. It felt like the referees could feel the chaos and they didn't know what to do. And then you want to throw chaos in there at Josh Dobbs. Like, he was chaos. He was extremely chaotic. Normally at the end of games, when our quarterback is about to get sacked, it's going to be a sack. It's going to be a sack, or it's going to be a check down to somebody, and everybody's going to be pissed off at the check down for our life. Josh Dobbs breaks a long run, not once, but twice in this game, where everybody's like, whoa, he's a magician. So I'm excited to see what he can do next. Honestly, when you look at what Taylor Heineke did, I think the Byron Murphy Jr. interception was huge. Mm-hmm. But Josh Dobbs, like, he gives Kevin O'Connell the ability. And I think, honestly, Kevin O'Connell's offense was set for Jaren Hall, and Josh Dobbs can run it because he can roll out. He can play action the same way. So it was a similar play plan. I think the best thing that happened was not having to go from Kirk Cousins to Josh Dobbs, but Jaren Hall to Josh Dobbs. I don't think you would have had the same offensive quickness going from Kirk to Josh, because you would not have, created that mid-game. But Josh Dobbs, I mean, he's played some pro football before with the Arizona Cardinals, and we got a glimpse of it today. The good thing, and I said this last week, this is an easy stretch of games. Even though this was a close game, who cares if they beat bad teams closely, as long as they win? And I think that's going to be the key, getting some confidence going down. It's tough now for Jaren Hall. He was 5 for 6 before he got the concussion with some really good scrambles. And now we're probably never going to see him again this season, because I think Josh Dobbs earned it in this game alone. Yeah,
I do want to ask you guys about Jaren Hall.
Yeah, I wonder about that
later on. Yeah, but
because the sideline reporter on the broadcast, I forget her name, said
Christina Pink.
It was Christina Pink. Yeah, said that there seemed to be an implication that they really had contracted the playbook for Dobbs, but they didn't for Jaren Hall. So I wonder if Hall is cleared from concussion protocol. I wonder if they would rather stick with Jaren Hall because they kind of get the whole playbook. I mean, he was making a lot more changes at the line of scrimmage. He was in control of a lot more. He had a lot more options. It's a more dynamic offense versus whatever you can kind of cobble together on, short notice with Josh Dobbs. But that said, now he has a full week as probably the starter. We'll see if Jaren Hall, again, maybe he just gets cleared in 2 days, because concussions can be like that. Or maybe it's 3 weeks, right? So having a full week with Dobbs, maybe you can get more dynamicism there and get it. But it's just like gutty. Like, that's the only word that comes to mind, is just like gutty. Like, just escape the sack, never give up, find a lane, go get an explosive rush, the touchdown, a couple of them on the final game winning drive. Just never give up, never surrender, gutty.
Yeah, it was when Dobbs tied it up in the third quarter, when he ran that one in, and then the 2-point conversion to Tristan Jackson. I'm sitting on the couch with my wife. She turns to me and she goes, "Is this a preseason game? Josh Dobbs to Tristan Jackson? Like, who are these guys? What's going on right now? Is this the middle of August?" No, it's week 9 in Minnesota. That's how we roll. And Luke, I'm sitting there thinking too, if the Vikings were to pull this one out, it's one of the greatest performances of in-game adjustments and adapting on the fly to your surrounding that we've maybe ever seen. So how much credit does KOC and this team get for that?
I think in 2 ways. For one, like the schematic version of you do not have Jefferson. You don't have Darisaw. You don't have a quarterback that started that was with you, 10 days ago. You are working with backups to backups to backups, like Ron said. But also I think it's a culture win, because it's so easy to pack it in. When you get you just had a great drive from Jaren Hall, thinking, oh, hey, look, this is actually going to work. We believe in it. He goes out. Next drive, Josh Dobbs, gets a safety. It looks totally like it would have been so easy to show a little quit. It would have been so easy to say, gosh, wow, bad luck. All well, woe is us. And just to fight and scrape and claw through so many haymakers from the Falcons at 60-yard Jonnu Smith touchdown, and just kind of keep flying. Like, the most demoralizing thing that can happen to you is when the Falcons call the same play 6 times in a row, mid-zone, same exact play 6 times in a row for a touchdown, for their final touchdown of the game. Like, that is so demoralizing.
Yeah.
And then to show up next drive and get the stop that you need. I mean, I know they only had 22 seconds, but like, just to get the ball back and have the drive that the Vikings had there, like, there's just not an ounce of quit in this team, and that goes to culture.
Well, Ron, I want your 2 cents on that, and I'm not going to pull up every win on his resume, but fair to say this was one of the better wins KOC just put up in his young career, given, again, the implications, all the different variables that was thrown at him. You've been in an NFL locker room before, Ron. What's the emotion like right now for this team, and what's it do for the momentum and chemistry now moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I said this last week too. And people are like, "Oh, did they just give up?" No, I don't care what you think about what we should do. And this is what a player's thinking. We should tank to get a better draft pick. We should do this. Everybody was banking on when Jaren Hall got hurt, like, all right, let's just go lose every game now and let's try to get a better draft pick. And then Josh Dobbs literally pees on everybody's party and says, "Hold up. I'm better than you guys realize." And that's, I mean, he just flew into Minnesota a couple of days ago. There's guys that work at places like, I'm not going to name businesses, but companies. And in the first 3 or 4 days, they don't even know where to go to the bathroom at. They don't know who to email, like, to find out what time they can go to lunch. And this guy is out here winning football games in that amount of time. He probably doesn't even know everybody's name on the team by face. Like, if he were to stand in front of a bunch of guys and they'd be like, "Who is that?" He would probably be like, Tito? Like, dude, we don't even have a Tito on the team. Like, so when you think about where he is, I mean, it is a great call for Kevin O'Connell. And you saw every chance the camera could get, you could see Kevin O'Connell every time Josh Dobbs came off trying to talk him through, like, hey, just think about this. You, like, because it was the one, I think, when he threw it to TJ Hawkinson, he was telling them, like, you stared him down the entire time. So that next defender coming in is just reading your eyes. And he was trying to tell him, like, turn to your left a little bit, hold him, and then come back to your right last minute. And he was trying to, like, walk him through that. And Josh Dobbs, again, it's like drinking water from a fire hose. He's trying to figure out everything. And then also you're like, oh, wait, I got to look a guy off too. I totally forgot about that. My bad, coach. I'm just trying to figure out what the play is. But at the end of the day, the next question is going to be Justin Jefferson. He was eligible to come back. And does he now come back this week? Like, or do they hold him off? I know he has to meet with the doctors and trainers, they said, to get completely cleared. But does this want to speed him up now, seeing what Josh Dobbs can do, putting another weapon on the field? Because next week they're going to go into the game with probably no KJ Osborne, probably no Jaren Hall. So you're going to have Josh Dobbs and then Sean Mannion. And so can you get JJ back on the field to add another weapon to this team?
You had N'Keal Harry on the field for key plays in this game. That's how far down. And Powell, I thought Powell got banged up at one point, but then came back in, caught the game-winning TD. I just want to point this out before Luke redirects us. Does this officially redeem the Josh Freeman game?
I was going to say, this feels like karmic, like 10 years later.
Yeah, it's balancing the scales. Almost 10-year anniversary of the Josh Freeman game. You get another Josh coming in on a short week of prep and doing the opposite of what the other Josh did. So I think we can stop talking about Freeman now. We can just talk about Dobbs and put
the
that
Josh Dobbs legacy game
deep into the past.
Well, and if I told you while you were watching the Freeman game that, hey, in 10 years from exactly today or whenever, pretty close to a decade, that, hey, everything would be redeemed, would you take it? I think a lot of fans would. I think they would. Sam,
2013 was a lost season. Who cares about
that?
Yeah. Sam, I want your 2 cents. Try your best to think about this team and what things look like just a week ago, right? 6-7 days ago, because a lot was made this week, whether this front office was going to be sellers, were they going to be buyers at the deadline? Kwesi kind of stuck at the crossroads, losing his starting quarterback, but also, hey, we just won 3 straight. We're in the thick of a playoff race. It's only one game now, but how should fans feel about the decision to stand pat for the most part and keep their core, nucleus intact with 8 games to play after what you saw today without Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, I think Kwesi's philosophical choices will kind of bear out over time. Like we will see in retrospect how that looks. I respect he and KOC's philosophy that they want to play competitive games in Minnesota. That they just may not be a tanking front office coach combo. Ownership doesn't like tanking. This is not a tanking organization. And that's fine. Might you regret if Danielle Hunter leaves? Might you regret not getting something more for that guy? Maybe, probably. But I think you still have a ways to go to call yourself a contender with this backup quarterback. Like, I don't think that, he's, suddenly turned the Vikings back into like a legit playoff team. I don't know about that. But now you've got some time. You've got still a soft schedule and time to get Josh Dobbs up to speed. Maybe you can turn this into something more meaningful. Right now, I think it's more about staying afloat, trying to grind out wins like you did today. But Kwesi, has the potential to look like a genius for this Josh Dobbs move. For getting him basically for free, he gets you a win 5 days later and maybe a number of wins to come. So that move, fortifying the quarterback position with someone that a lot of people doubted, I think, and myself included at the time of the trade, Kwesi could come out of here looking, pretty good.
Yeah, well said. All right, I want to keep diving into this one and talk about kind of where the Vikings go from here. But first, let's get a quick word in from our sponsors over at LinkedIn. Guys, don't forget this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why it's a must to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. I've done it myself. Trust me when I say it's so easy to create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs to help you spread the word fast that you're hiring. Personally, my favorite part, it's also simple. The tools they give you makes it extra easy, and it's also extremely quick. Like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skill set and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free on linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Ron. I got to talk about this Brian Flores defense, man. I mean, things may get overshadowed this week, certainly about all the quarterback controversy and talk, the next few days about Dobbs coming in and where do we go with Jaren Hall. But Brian Flores, man, he needs some love on that side of the ball. What'd you see from them on that side of the ball today in Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean, so there were times where you're like, man, we got to stop rushing just 3 or 4. But honestly, he was playing chess. Like he was trying to see what Taylor Heinicke would do. He didn't, and we did see Taylor Heinicke actually get out the pocket and get some big runs. So I think that was another part of it. Brian Flores knew kind of what they didn't want, which is some of those big runs down the stretch. The Taylor Heinicke giving himself up, knee maybe touching the ground, Harrison Smith punching the ball out. For me, I thought that should have been a turnover because technically, if you're going to continue to give him the yards as his body goes forward, but you don't stop him where he started to give himself up, because that's what the slide does. It's not where you end up, it's where you started. So if you're not going to stop him at giving himself up where he starts, but where he lands, then I still should be able to punch him out until he's officially down. And that's what Harrison Smith did. He punched the ball out. He wasn't officially down. Nobody had touched him. So giving himself up versus like he gets those extra couple of yards of moving forward, I think that should have been a fumble. But then you get the interception from Byron Murphy in that same situation, rushing 3 to 4, playing coverage behind it. Josh Metellus, he was this close. The big pass behind him to the tight end Kyle Pitts. If he has a higher vertical,
crazy
or
throw,
he just keeps getting depth, realizing there's nothing in front of him that's to scare him, and just keep backing up slowly, he probably gets an interception there. There was, I think, one on the sideline. I couldn't remember if it was Cam Bynum again on that one. Cam Bynum kind of ran a perfect, combo, and he realized, he's going to throw it behind him. He could have picked it off there. So Brian Flores is putting guys in perfect positions. And then you actually saw the goal line stand, I guess you want to call it the red zone stand. The defense line, DJ Wanham, Harrison Phillips, they came alive as well. So there was flashes of like, I don't think this was a Kirk Cousins is out, we have to win defense. This was the same defense we've seen. We're finally just seeing them in moments. And again, I'm not gonna hate. It was Taylor Heinicke. Taylor Heinicke did have a decent day though, but this defense did do their job. So that's all that was needed.
Yeah, the goal line stand really sticks out, but you also got to remember the Vikings were losing the turnover battle 2-0, about almost 2 full quarters into that game. Forcing those 2 turnovers was huge as well. But Luke, just same question. What's sticking out to you right now from this defense right now and is really starting to impress a lot of people as of late?
I mean, yeah, they're playing out of their skulls. It was really interesting how much drop 8 they did in this one. I know the Vikings do a lot of drop 8, like that's their identity, but it felt like they were much more interested in dropping back into coverage than trying to blitz and send a ton of people at Taylor Heinicke. They really thought that the Falcons were going to be able to counter that pretty well. And to be honest, I think the best play in Atlanta's arsenal all day was smoke screen to Jonnu Smith. That's how they got that 60-yard touchdown. They converted a couple on that. Yeah, on countering a blitz. So maybe that is part of the logic is, hey, their quick game, the stuff they check into is actually pretty good. We don't want to necessarily get into that. Let's drop 8. So it's very interesting how much drop 8 there was. Heineke did a pretty good job of finding windows in that. And the Vikings did a pretty good job of getting pressure with 3. I thought Danielle Hunter was in there a lot. I thought DJ Wonnum had a pretty good game against that Falcons O-line, getting into the backfield. So it's just everything about this game is so weird. Like, yeah, the drop 8 coverage was actually kind of had some holes in it, and the 3-man rushes actually got home a little bit. Like, sure. Yeah, that's how that's supposed to work.
Just exactly how you draw it up. Sam, I'll give you the final word on the defense, how they've been really stepping up the last few games, and what you're seeing when it comes to, what's the main catalyst, I guess, for the recent success, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, today you see 28 on the board, but let's take away 2 for the safety and then 6 from 2 very short fields where the defense actually did well.
Turnovers in field
to hold
range.
them. Yeah, so I mean, it's a 20 points allowed game by the defense. I think you'll take that all day long. You don't like getting bullied on that final touchdown drive in the run game. And I thought they'd been stout against the run leading up to that. I think just as you watch on TV, there isn't a player on this defense where you're just like cringing when it's thrown their way. No one's getting exposed. Murphy's playing adequately. Evans is playing adequately. Metellus is all over the place. I feel like last year, every other series, Eric Hendricks and Jordan Hicks were getting burned by a tight end or a running back. That's not happening as much this year. Everybody just seems to be playing cohesively as a unit, and I thought the defense, particularly on that defensive line, played with a lot of physicality and a lot of aggression. I missed the joke from Ron. So I bet it was hilarious, though. That's all I got. Defense.
To your point about Jordan Hicks and Cam Dancer was a part of that problem too last year, a little bit. Just a little bit.
The busts.
Yeah.
Speaking of Cams, by the way, Kevin O'Connell on the podium does confirm Cam Akers' Achilles injury.
Oh, man. Well, let me ask you, Ron, just stemming off that aftermath of all these injuries, Akers, toast, Jaren Hall, concussion, Darisaw, surprise injury this morning, KJ Osborne, Hawkinson even hobbled up. But then you think about next week, okay, knock on wood, hopefully getting a guy like Justin Jefferson back. Just what's it all look like with so many moving parts when you envision next week versus Saints?
Well, next week versus Saints, in my opinion, I think it's got to look at what the end of this game looked like. Josh Dobbs, and this is my last one before I get out of here, but Josh Dobbs has to be able to do what he did. I think he has to be the guy. Cam Jordan, we know this was the Cam Jordan, I hate Kirk Cousins game. And so now you're going to see a quarterback that makes fast decisions fast. And so we'll see how they handle it. But I like his legs. Like, I like the fact that he can force coaches to say, we can't just rush. We can't just sit back and play man coverage with our backs to the quarterback, because if we miss, he's going to get 20 yards. And so I think I think Sam said it. This is something we haven't seen from a quarterback here ever. Like a guy that really just is a true runner, but also can beat you with the pass. I think when he learns this offense, and I'm not saying it's going to happen even this week, but the little bits and pieces of it, you're seeing KOC having to become a mastermind in this.
Yeah, well said. That's Ron Johnson again on X at 3Ron Johnson. Can't wait to hear you break down the Vikings this week on the Ron Johnson Show. I'll let either of you guys answer that one as well, just to follow up. Is there one guy, when you see all those big names on paper there that got hurt today or were missing, like a Darisaw surprise injury, that you say is really a key kind of catalyst to getting him back if this team's going to continue to succeed moving forward?
I mean, Darisaw might be the most important of that
for sure.
group.
Yep.
I thought Quessenberry conducted himself pretty well. I know he gave up the safety. Part of that was Dobbs' fault, though. I thought he did well in this game, but there's going to be a trickle-down effect, right? Like if Osborne and Jefferson don't play, and remember, Adam Schefter did tweet, I think it was last night, that Justin Jefferson is not insured to be activated, that there are still tests that have to be done. They might be a little more cautious with him. It's a 4 to 6 week injury. We've just hit the 4-week mark. So that's not a guarantee. So you could have a receiving core, of Powell, Addison, Tristan Jackson could be your 1-2-3. Maybe Jalen Naylor makes an appearance, but you're going to be depleted at wide receiver. I'm less concerned, I guess, and shout out to Cam Akers, man. That's really tough. Yeah. I guess I feel okay about Ty Chandler and Kene Nwangwu being activated, being part of that mix, although Akers had shown us plenty of good stuff this year. But yeah, I think that they can function. I'd love to get Darrisaw back, though. That would be the number one for me. And beyond that, I think you do have just enough depth to get by. But yeah, let's get Jefferson back. That wouldn't hurt.
Are we 100% sold that, let's just say Jaren Hall gets cleared on Tuesday, right? And you got both quarterbacks, in your back pocket. Who's starting on Wednesday at practice, first team? How do we feel? Did Dobbs do enough there? Did he plant the flag? Can you say there's any way after what Dobbs just did, rallied you back, got a dub on the road that you're gonna bench this guy now? What's your quick thoughts on that?
Dobbs. The safety was bad. The strip sack fumble was bad. The other fumble right into the DT was bad. Like, he did a lot of really cool legacy stuff, and I think he gets to feel pretty good today. But there was a lot of really, really rough stuff that you cannot just ignore.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that Hall is going to be eligible. Like, you saw the Falcons had this exact situation.
Right. It's concussion.
Ritter was cleared, but look around the league. There is a precedent now that is constant across all 32 teams. Concussion means you're out a week. It's not written officially in stone, but that is the precedent that's been set with all the conscientiousness about head injuries, the Tua stuff last year. Hall might be cleared. He's not going to play next week. I'm 99% sure that this is going to be a Josh Dobbs week. And then you'll have 2 games of data to decide whether you want to continue with Dobbs if Hall then is eligible. Who's after the Saints? Is that the Bears, Raiders? Who's that game?
We go Bears, Raiders, I believe. Let me
Bears
pull it up.
bye week, Raiders, I think.
Denver. Where's Denver? Saints, Denver, Chicago, bye week, Raiders Saints, out of the bye. Chicago. Saints, Denver, Chicago, bye.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it too, and we're not going to get to know this. Kevin O'Connell's not going to tell us this, is just how well Dobbs is grasping the playbook. Really hard to do that. O'Connell, just in the post-game pressers going on right now, said it was an install on the fly. It was like, okay, this is our concept. This is how you read it, in the huddle. So crazy that actually worked out and turned into a game. But I think that's also part of why Dobbs was just breaking the pocket and running around sometimes. So I don't know if what we saw today is necessarily what we get from Dobbs in the long term. I think he was just playing gutty hero ball without a lot of those concepts actually being executed the way that they're supposed to be executed, which of course, 4 days, right? That's just dudes just going out there and hooping. But if you get into Tuesday, Wednesday, and you still feel I don't know if he's going to be executing these concepts properly, then assuming Jaren Hall is cleared by some kind of miracle, then I don't think you stick with him. But I'm with Sam that it's going to be Josh Dobbs against the Saints. I'd be super surprised. Jaren Hall got knocked out cold. That's going to be that's going to take some time, and he should get that time. It's very good that teams are way more cautious than they ever have been with concussions. Please don't fry his brain. Seriously. No, well said. A couple quickies to close here coming up. Let's just look at that remaining schedule a little bit more in depth and what all that looks like right after I tell you about FanDuel. Quick reminder, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, no matter what, win or lose, when you throw down just $5. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get on all the action. The app, it's so easy to use, and they got everything you need. Money lines, parlays, prop bets, you name it, they got it. FanDuel's got everything you need to bet on the entire NFL season, and it's by far the easiest and simplest betting app to use. I love the Hawkinson over 53 yards today. In fact, we use FanDuel's prop lines every week on the Minnesota Football Party because we love it that much. So go check it out and see for yourself and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon today. America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, fellas, halfway mark.
Weird year. I'll just say that. Weird year. Vikings are 5-4. Forget about how we got here, but we're 5-4, a game above 500 now. Huge win. Moves us closer in the NFC North race. You kind of touched on it earlier, Sam. Saints, Denver, Chicago, bye week. I guess how much more confidence do you have in this team that they can stay hot and continue this run after finally seeing them win without Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, I would say the Saints are a slight uptick in class from Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think Taylor Heineke is good, and I don't think they utilize their offensive pieces well in Atlanta. I think New Orleans will be a little tougher test next week. They're 5-4. They beat the Bears today, right? I assume they finished that game off. They were up by 7 late.
Mm-hmm.
So you go forward now with a week of Dobbs. Your defense is playing better, and your defense, with all the injuries going on, your defense seems to be fairly healthy. They kind of survived all that physicality. I'm not sure anybody on defense went down and stayed out in this game. So that's a good sign. You can win, each of these next 4 games leading up to Cincinnati, where it gets really challenging. But I think it is more of a coin flip every week. Are you going to get crazy Josh Dobbs runs to bail you out every week? Are you going to get giveaways by the opposing quarterback every week? Maybe not. So you are going to need to play a little more sustainably on offense. You're probably going to find yourself in 1-score games every single week, and you're going to need some heroics from that quarterback. And I think we're on a high today, but it could turn next week, right? There's not a lot known about what Josh Dobbs is going to do in this offense or Jaren Hall. So let's go a week at a time. I wouldn't make any grand proclamations about the future, but let's see if they can hang against the Saints. Let's see if Dobbs can play cleanly.
Yeah, Luke, kind of same thoughts. I mean, we only have 1 game to go off of. That's all we got. But, of course, we're going to sit here and dissect it as much as we can. Did this win move the needle at all for the Vikes in the NFC playoff picture, given these next 3 games coming up? A lot of people are calling it a pretty soft stretch here.
I mean, I think it showed where the team's at, right?
Yep.
No quit. Gives you hope. I mean, you kind of go into this last 9 games where we're all going, all right, season's over. Everybody kind of is like halfway rooting for him to lose, and let's get draft picks and, what's going on in the Pac-12. Like, I think it changes that a little bit for people, but the team, they're going, no, we're going to just go win the game in front of us. 1-0 every week, right? There's something that Kwesi said in one of his press conferences before the season started that just said, we're just focusing on the 5 feet in front of us. I love that. Just the 5 feet in front of you. Go play the Saints, playoff picture, all that stuff. That'll play itself out. Yeah, maybe they make the playoffs as the 7 seed and then they don't do anything and they lose. And then it makes them, 10 spots lower in the draft. And they would, oh my God, who cares? Today was fun. Let it be fun.
Yeah, no, well said. All right, last one, then we'll get out of here. I think, KOC should get so much love this week for what he did with the in-game management stuff. Josh Dobbs, obviously, is going to get a lot of love for putting the team on his back. But just give me one kind of under-the-radar guy that you picked out while you sat down and watched this game that you just want to give a little shout-out to, a little bit of love. Sam, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Metellus was flying around once again. I thought the secondary was quietly quite good. Johnny Munt making a play. I'm just going to steal everybody from Braun. Braun, go ahead before I rattle off too many.
Yeah, just rattle off all of them.
I thought Jaquelin Roy kind of flashed a little bit.
Yeah,
he didn't get had that ton of snaps, but yeah, he did.
Yeah, he had that one really cool TFL where he just penetrated in, and that's kind of what he does. He just sometimes he just like finds himself in the backfield, and it's a 3-yard loss. It's Wanham for me. Wanham was in the backfield a lot on 3-man rushes, beating blocks, really trying to have an outsized effect on Heineke. A lot of those bad Heineke throws were, on the run, away from Wanham or away from Hunter. I think those guys really got everything kind of started from there, and it made it so even when there were holes in the zone, if there were slight spacing mistakes or just slight, receiver ran a good route, found the spot, it's too tight of a window. And I think it's not unlike last week. There were opportunities there, but they were too difficult to actually seize them for Taylor Heineke. Same thing as with Jordan Love.
Yeah, well said. Vikings beat the Falcons 31-28 in one of the most bizarre games you'll ever see. They moved to 5-4 in the year. Rest assured, we'll be breaking it all down right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota channel. So glad you guys could join us. Each one of you, 225 people in the live stream right now. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. And a reminder, we're going to be here every single game from here on out the rest of the season. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That's your reminder as well. Go check out Luke every day on the Locked On Vikings podcast. He's pumping out everything you need to know throughout the Vikings 2023 season. But that'll do it for us today. Follow us on X at Luke_Spinman, at 3Ron Johnson. Check him out on the Ron Johnson Show every week, at Luke Braun NFL. Check him out every day on the Locked On Vikings podcast. Sam Ekstrom, host of the Minnesota Football Party. He's on X at Sam Ekstrom. For Luke Braun, Ron Johnson, Sam Ekstrom, I'm Luke Inman. Until next time, signing out.